Good morning, welcome to Law Power Hour. Wednesday we're going to have snow, and for those of you who are looking forward to Christmas, we like white Christmases. For those of you who are not looking forward to the snow, we have Lieutenant Sims with us today. Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning. How you doing, sir?
Fine. I said Lieutenant Sims. He's from the Wayne County Sheriff's Department, and we're welcoming the snow, but I know that makes more work for you, doesn't it?
Of course.
You know, the first rule I always tell individuals, and we've got a lot of things to talk about today that have to do with holiday safety, and one of the most important things is, God forbid, if you get in an accident, the first thing you do is don't leave the scene of the accident. Call law enforcement to make sure that there's a report and everyone's checked out. Would you agree with me on that?
Oh, 100%.
Well, what's the importance of doing that?
The importance of it is to make sure that everybody at the accident is present, that the doc is properly documented, and that way no one's involved in leaving the scene of an accident, which is a crime.
Okay. Did you hear what he said? It's a crime to leave the scene of an accident. So if you're involved in an accident, don't leave the scene of the accident. If there's a pedestrian accident and you see the pedestrian accident, be a good citizen and stick around. Don't turn your back on the person who's been knocked down, left in the street, and there are no witnesses there. And poor pedestrian. I've had two clients who were involved in pedestrian accidents. They were both hit and run. It's a pretty sad situation. Both of them were seriously injured. One of them was in the parking lot of a church, believe it or not.
Wow.
Somebody jumped the curb, came up in the parking lot, hit my client, knocked her down, and left her there. Fortunately, members of the congregation saw the accident and called the police. But short of that, the poor woman would have been left there, 72-year-old woman. Would have been a pretty sad situation.
Yeah, that would have been definitely sad. So it's very important that if you are involved in an accident, that you don't leave that scene. And by all means, do what you can to render care and aid, because at least until professionals get there, because every second counts when you're in an accident.
Now, I ask for your visit today because we want to talk about public safety in the holidays in one segment, and we have other things we're going to talk about that have to do with epidemics in the community, one of them being opiates, which we'll talk about further in the show. But in terms of public safety, what's the most important factor that you believe we as citizens should be conscious of when we go out shopping during the holidays?
Well, one thing you definitely want to be conscious of is your surroundings. By all means, try not to be out alone. And I know a lot of people do their shopping after work and this and that, and because it get dark so early now, if you park in a well-lit area. Try not to leave your merchandise where it's visible in your vehicle. By all means, lock your doors, because there's all kind of scams going on around the holiday time. People are hurt, and people don't have jobs, they don't have money. However, this holiday season, people get real sentimental, and they think they have to do any and everything to provide for their family. So a lot of times you have people who get out and they want to commit crimes to get some money just to bring home a gift or something.
Now, this is real important for you to keep in mind. I left my briefcase in my car. It was visible instead of leaving it in the trunk about 6 years ago during the Christmas season. I was parked in front of the Lincoln Center, which is the juvenile court, and somebody broke my window, took my briefcase out of my car, stole my computer. So it taught me a lesson never to leave any belongings in the car. I put them in the trunk now. And this is the advice. Would you agree with me? This is good advice. If you buy gifts, put them in the trunk.
I agree wholeheartedly. And also, a lot of people use the GPS systems. If you have those where they suction to your front windshield, put that stuff away as well. As long as nothing's showing, it's kind of a deterrent. If a criminal don't see anything in the vehicle, they're subject not to break in there.
And in your experience, do you believe that there are criminals who work parking lots during the holidays?
Oh, definitely, especially around sporting events and stuff like that.
Yeah, well I saw not a happy grin, but it's a fact. Sporting events, people work parking lots. There are gangs that work parking lots, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
And tell our listeners about some of your experiences.
Well, I've seen a lot of instances where people are paying $20 and $30 to park their vehicle, come back and their vehicle is gone. It's not a secured lot. It's not a lot that's actually where someone should be parking. You just have people out there with signs, homemade signs, and they're collecting your money. And a lot of people think it's secure, where unfortunately it's not.
Yeah, that's an interesting issue. Downtown and in the suburbs, there are many parking lots that have been abandoned, or they're in buildings that aren't being used on the weekend, correct?
Correct.
And if there are events going on and you see signs and you don't recognize this as being a designated parking lot and someone's charging a fee, you should beware of where you're parking.
That's true, very true. You definitely want to get somewhere where someone looks professional, maybe, where it's well lit. Those sort of things kind of count. But I know it gets so crowded at times that you really don't know where it's safe, where it's not. So be careful of trying to save an extra 10 or 20 bucks, because it can cost you a lot more in the long run.
I've gone downtown in Detroit and I've seen people with signs, paper signs for parking, and I stay away from them because I say, well, wait a second. This is not a designated parking area. If I park my car there and something goes wrong, whose fault is it? It's mine,
Exactly.
because I was trying to cut corners. Now, let's get to the next important factor here. I'm at the mall shopping. Give me all of the rules that you believe are important for me while I'm shopping at the mall to protect myself and my family.
One thing I would definitely say, try not to shop alone. Always be cognizant of your surroundings. And if you don't have to carry a big bag, try not to. Try not to carry a lot of cash on you. Try to be limited to maybe one credit card or one debit card, where it's something easy where you can secure it yourself. It is not out in the open. If you using ATM machines, watch your back. Be careful of people standing close to you while you're in line, because they could very well, they have all kind of devices now where they can try to get your information.
Okay, you and I talked about being distracted while you're shopping,
Yes,
and it's a big issue.
huge issue.
And let's role play here. You're shopping, I come up and talk to you, and you've got a handbag. Now we're really role playing, but that's okay. And I want the listeners to pay attention to this because it could happen to you any day of the week. So you're talking to me and you're distracted. And I ask you a question. You put your bag down for a second. Next thing you know, someone has run off with your bag. Is that an uncommon incident?
That's a very common incident. Very common. You got a lot of times these scam artists, they work in groups, and they use the distract. That's pretty much like a distraction technique, where they would utilize that. Someone come up and ask for directions or ask for, you know what store this is, anything to distract you. Or they could be asking, hey, you got some spare change. So you got a lot of that going on as well. So anything to distract you, to take your mind off that, where their partner can easily come up, grab your bag or any type of valuables you may have.
So the most important thing is to walk away from individuals who are trying to distract you, even if you feel sorry for them. You have to do that. And one of the things I'm going to say, and it's going to be painful to say, but it's truthful. If people are out in the street begging for quarters, they want a quarter, they want a $50, they want to buy coffee. They're standing out there all day long. You don't have to give them the money. They're out there all day long, and most of them are receiving Social Security benefits if they're out there anyways, because they've got nothing else to do with their time. So they're picking up extra money, and I know they need the extra money to live on, so I'm not condemning them, but they create problems for other people.
Yes. I mean, it's almost like a catch-22 where you're trying to have a heart. However, it can lead to a confrontation. It can lead to you being robbed. It can lead to all kind of other things. So it's really sad. It's really no right answer, but you have to protect yourself. It's unfortunate.
You know, I want a few of the listeners to call in, please, because I want to know how many of you actually shopped online, had packages delivered to your house, and you weren't home, and got your packages. Because Lieutenant and I were talking about this, and it's a pretty serious problem, isn't it?
A very serious problem. So, I mean, we see it on the news every day where people are leaving deliveries on the front door and people just walk up, grab it, and walk away. And just like that, whatever that merchandise you paid for is just gone.
And not everybody can afford a surveillance camera. Not everybody can afford to have a telephone with a surveillance application so that they can watch their porch. But frankly, if you're gone for home and you have a surveillance camera and somebody comes up on your porch, it doesn't do you any good anyways.
That's true.
So these are real serious problems. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
So you're getting ready for holiday parties. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Your circle of friends, your relatives. It's a pretty normal event to occur, right?
Yeah, correct.
But one of the biggest problems with holiday parties is drinking.
Huge problem.
So we've got to give some good advice to all of you when it comes to holiday party. Not everybody can call up one of these driver services to drive them home. Frankly, I don't know if all the drivers are going to be sober either, but it's a serious problem. So how do you handle the holiday situation from your perspective?
It's kind of hard because at this time of year, traffic is beefed up for a lot of the drunk driving that goes on. So it's important that even when you're at these holiday parties, let's be responsible. Drink responsible. Whatever you do, just do it responsibly. And by all means, try, by all means, to have a designated driver. And if not, sometimes you have to utilize those driving companies like Uber and Lyft and that sort of thing. I mean, it's the next best thing because you definitely don't want to get jammed where you're subject to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else.
One of my clients was having a holiday party yesterday, and I told him, to make a reservation at a hotel or a motel, because I know he has a tendency to drink. I didn't want him to drink and drive. He said, I don't feel like getting up in the middle of the night to come down and get you out of jail. I was very serious about it. And he had already lost his license once for reckless driving, a drinking event. So drinking and driving are a problem. However, there's a bigger problem. Driving under the influence of narcotics. And it's a whole new world for you, isn't it?
A whole new world, yes indeed.
Okay, come on closer to the microphone for this one. Okay, come on now. Because now we're going into marijuana. We have medical marijuana, which has been approved. And we're going to have all these dispensaries. And we're going to have people going to and coming from the dispensaries. And we know they're already under the influence of marijuana if they're going to the medical marijuana clinic and they're buying marijuana, correct?
Absolutely correct. And not only are they buying the marijuana, but they're buying the marijuana cookies. They're having the marijuana drinks now. So this is stuff that's being consumed right as they're walking out of these dispensaries. So yes, it is a bigger problem.
Okay, now this is real serious. Now think about this. You go to the marijuana clinic and you don't want to smoke because you've got COPD. You know, you've already had a history of smoking cigarettes for 20, 30 years. So they sell cookies, right?
Cookies, brownies.
You've seen them in the dispensaries, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
One-stop shopping. You can
Yes,
get your
indeed.
drink, you can get your cookies, you know. You can get your
Bag of marijuana as
bag
well.
of marijuana, whatever you want, if you have a marijuana card. But think about this. It's real important. Think about this. On the way to the clinic and on the way back from the clinic, more likely than not, if you got a medical marijuana card, you're already under the influence of marijuana.
It's a very high probability there.
And if you get stopped because you're speeding through the parking lot, what's going to happen?
You want to get pulled over.
And when you get pulled over, what kind of check are you going to make?
Going to do a check on your marijuana card. We're going to check your status as well. I mean, it depends on what type of violation they commit.
Well, suppose you're speeding. I mean, you're going to swab me?
No, we wouldn't swab you. I mean, we would give you basically a moving violation, but we would sit there and interview you and kind of watch you and see how your antics are, how your body motion is, and we'll ask a series of questions.
Well, now the state police have started to swab people, you know. This is new. But they're swabbing to determine whether they're under the influence of marijuana. Now, it is a crime to drive under the influence of drugs, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, let's get to the next level of that. Opiates. You and I talked about this a while ago, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And what's the problem with the opiates?
Opioids is a huge growing, and constantly growing epidemic that's going on all across the nation, actually.
Okay, so it doesn't have to mean or be that you started out because you're a drug addict, because you want to be a drug addict. You can acquire a drug problem as a result of legitimately taking drugs.
Yes, very well. Like a lot of athletes may get an injury, a sports injury. Or you could have been in a car accident or anything where you become addicted to pain pills and just start from there.
And when you have addictive behavior, how does that translate in terms of how you function in society?
You become dependent upon that. And as the need grows, it grows and grows, and before you know it, you're highly addicted to it, and the situation is rampant, out of control.
And when it's rampant out of control, there are altered character traits, correct?
Yes.
And that's where the problem starts. You're driving under the influence, you're not paying attention to what you're doing, your reaction time is down while you're driving, or if you're out in the community, your reaction time, you're lethargic, you're slow, you're not functioning at the same level, and it becomes a problem for you in law enforcement, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And how do you make a decision if you stop someone and you know that they're under the influence of narcotics and they told you that they have a prescription from their doctor? What do you do?
I mean, you have to check into it. You have to definitely investigate the situation. And you have to use your training, everything we're trained for, what you see. Because in law enforcement, our first responsibility is to safeguard lives and property. And if I see you're lethargic and everything, you're under the influence, first of all, I got to save you from you.
Okay, saving me from me is important, but saving the other person from me is just as important if I'm driving.
Yes, it is.
So the cardinal rule should be, if you're taking medicine, you should have a designated driver.
Definitely. And you should not get behind that wheel under no circumstance.
If you're, for example, how many times in your 25-year career have you had instances where someone has had a diabetic attack while they're driving their vehicle?
I haven't had that experience, but I've heard of many instances where it has happened, where a medical situation basically caused them to blink out, lose control, and very well take someone's life.
So what we're trying to say is exercising good, sound judgment is the most important factor when you're driving your car during the holidays. Don't road test.
Right.
Those are the words that I like to use. Don't road test. Now, I guess there's no one out there listening this morning, but if you are, call in, because we're going to go into a couple areas here that are going to be kind of sensitive. And we'll start off with domestic violence. Because elder abuse and domestic violence during the holidays reach high levels. Isn't that true?
Yes, it is true.
Why is that?
Well, you got that, like I said, a holiday season. A lot of people get depressed and stressed because they're not able to do as much as they would like or do anything for their families for Christmas. And a lot of time they take it out on their loved ones.
And the sheriff's department or the local law enforcement get called into that situation.
We got to remember, we're the secondary law enforcement to most of the local agencies. However, we do assist a lot of the different local municipalities, and we do come across a lot of domestic violence issues.
And when you have the domestic violence, generally it's escalated because of drugs or liquor, isn't it?
Yes.
And most of the time someone, unfortunately, is getting injured.
Yes, definitely. And actually, in law enforcement, through training, it will tell you that your domestic violence run is one of your most dangerous runs to go to. So officers out there, you have to still use extreme caution when you're responding to domestic violence.
Why is it such a difficult area for you as a law enforcement officer to deal with?
Because you're going into a situation where you got two people having a disagreement that very well know each other most of the times. And in that case, they understand. A lot of times you get there as the law enforcement officer and they teaming up on you.
Okay. So what happens is that the tables are turned.
Tables turned immediately.
So somebody wanted attention, they got attention from the other person, then they turn around, and the two of them are in denial that they did anything wrong.
Exactly. And as an officer, when you respond, and it's really hard to determine, okay, well, who you need to take away, sometimes you haul them both of them away.
When you get hauled away in domestic violence, for those of you who want to know what happens, you better not be an active participant, because you're going to be under an order from the court. You can't go home for 30 days. And that's a rule of thumb in Wayne and Oakland and Macomb County, that you're not going to be allowed into the house if you are the perpetrator. If you're the one charged with domestic violence, you're going to be barred from the house for 30 days, at least for a cooling off period.
Yep.
And that becomes a very important issue. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
You know, one of the things that I was talking to you about before the show is that there are a lot of folks who are homebound and they've got to rely upon other individuals to do their snow removal, their gutter cleaning, their fall cleanup. And oftentimes they receive handbills
Yeah.
put in their mailbox, and they'll say, well, this is so-and-so's lawn service, this is so-and-so's cleanup service, snow removal, and they hire these people and they never get the service. You're called out to investigate those sometimes, aren't you?
Yes, we've done that in the past as well.
Okay. And that's a scam. So you gave me a good formula, and I thought this was really a good way of handling it. If I want snow removal in the wintertime, should I look at that literature that's left in my mailbox, or should I check with my neighbors to find out who's doing their snow removal, who's reliable, and who can I rely upon to do my work?
I think it would be better if you check with your neighbors and see who's doing theirs and make sure they're reliable. A lot of times you can go online if you have if you're savvy enough to go online. You can check who's licensed, who's insured. Make sure these are real companies.
Yeah, now, did you hear those words, licensed and insured? And they're really important. Because I know I have a listener out there who called me because they were doing some work. Landscape people were doing work across the alleyway, and they kept on backing the truck into her fence, and they broke her fence. The people aren't insured, they're not licensed, and nothing can be done to handle the situation. And that's the same is true if you're having work done on your house, because it's a crime in the state of Michigan to hold yourself out to be a contractor and have a license to do contractual work, such as house renovation, house repair, plumbing, or electrical, without a license.
That's true.
You have that happen, you know it happens, people ask you about it, and it's something that has to be dealt with through the Department of Regulations, licensing and regulation, but it's also a crime. And here's the problem. You may or may not be aware of this. If you come to my house and you're doing bootleg work, as I call it, it's the nicest way of putting it. And I met a guy the other day. I said, well, that's bootleg work. He took offense. He said, I do high-quality work. I said, that's not the point. It's still bootleg work. If you don't have a license, I don't have to pay you. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's a statute that says I don't have to pay you. But my gosh, could you think of what's going to happen if you don't pay that person to your house?
I think the police will be called out.
Yeah, it's going to be a real serious problem. But the fact of the matter is you have to be concerned about who's doing your work. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was during the holidays, tips for safety for people who go out and they want to get a Christmas tree. You know, they're lighting a Christmas tree is a big problem. I know that the sheriff's department is not primary, but you're called out oftentimes to these fatal incidents where someone is killed as a result of a house fire.
Mm-hmm.
And would you agree with me? Today, as you're listening to this show, and I'll say it, today is the best day to check all your smoke detectors.
I would agree with you 100%.
Because during the Christmas holidays, if you're sleeping upstairs and you're cooking downstairs and you leave the burners on and a fire starts, chances of getting out of the house are slim or none if you don't have good smoke detectors.
That's very true. So it's definitely as a safety tip. I think they announce it quite a bit, but you can't say it enough. You have to check those smoke detectors.
And secondly, having a real fire extinguisher, not one that you buy for 29 cents, but one that comes from a hardware store or a reputable store, a real fire extinguisher. Those are really two important factors. The third one is making sure that your electrical hookups, the wires that you use, if you're using extension cords, are good extension cords. Because these are big problems during the holidays, aren't they?
Yes, they are. So it's definitely good to check those electrical outlets and make sure you have the ones with the surge suppressors and stuff, because a lot of people overload one socket. You have to really be careful of that. And I would probably call out electricians or someone who specializes in that area.
Well, not everyone can afford to do that, but if they get the extension cords with the surge protectors, it's going to help them. You know, because there's so many different things going on in your house during the holidays with electricity. And if you're not capable of paying your bills and having your heat on, go to a shelter. Don't use the stove to heat the house, because you're creating a huge liability. Would you agree with me?
Yes, definitely. We've seen that countless times where have these apartment fires where people couldn't afford to pay their heat, and so they're utilizing their ovens and their stoves to heat the house, and it ends up in a tragic situation.
Another problem that I ran into in my years of practice during the holidays are space heaters. Because if you put a space heater in the wrong place and it tips over and it doesn't have an automatic shutoff on the space heater, you can start a fire in the house. And this becomes a very serious problem. So fire safety is another issue that we have to be cognizant of during the holidays. And all the merriment and all the good times that we're having, we have to be concerned about all of these different factors.
Yes.
Okay, so those are issues that we have to look at. And we also have to look at one issue that is always troubling to me during the holidays. It's guns. It's a big issue, isn't it?
Guns are always an issue, not just around the holidays.
No, I'm going to tell you a story, and this is a true story. During the holidays, about 15 years ago, this young fella went into his stepfather's gun locker and took out an AK-47. And it was New Year's Eve, and he decided to go out and shoot that AK-47, rounds and rounds and rounds of it off in the air. Well, a couple cars came by, and some of those bullets penetrated through the roof of the car and seriously injured people. So you have to be aware of what's going on in your neighborhood. The same thing with firecrackers, fireworks during the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
People get injured. So stay away from those situations. Stay away from guns. If you have guns at home during the holidays, make sure that no one has access to the guns. Would you agree with me?
100% agree.
And why would you agree with me on that, especially with the kids?
Well, just because kids are going to be curious, so it's definitely important that if you have guns in your home, make sure those guns are secured and away from the children, by all means. You know, one of the things we've always promoted is bells, not bullets, for the holidays. So, in other words, I know a lot of people like to go out and celebrate the new year by firing firearms, but the story you just told is a perfect example of why we shouldn't do this.
Okay, so we want more bell ringing and less bullets during the holidays.
We want all bell ringing and no bullets for the
Okay,
holidays.
I got it from the source. All bell ringing. Now, which leads me to the next issue. I have a license to carry a gun, and I'm riding in your car. I'm legal, correct?
Correct.
But as the driver of the car, are you legal?
The driver should be legal.
Okay. But if I have a permit and I own a gun, can I take the gun with me in the car?
If you have a permit,
I don't have a license to carry. I just have a permit. Can I
Oh.
take the gun in the car?
okay, no, you have to make sure it's stored properly, as if you're transporting, which in that point, you would have to put it in the trunk.
Okay, see, I wasn't throwing you a trick question here. I wanted to get this out. And,
Okay.
And you brought it out the best way. Storing it in your purse is not legal, correct?
Correct. Correct. It's not legal.
So if you store it in the trunk and you transport it, that's legal.
And it also has to be unloaded.
Okay. Did you hear that? It has to be unloaded. loaded. So if you've got a Glock in the trunk, but it's loaded, you're in trouble.
That's right, you're in trouble.
Because there's no reason for you to have that loaded gun, is there?
Not at all. Not if you're just transporting it.
So that creates another problem. People like to go out on holidays, and I talked to Sheriff Napoleon about this last year. And, you know, relatives get together, they come into town, friends come over, they want to go out. You want to go down to a sports bar, you want to go downtown to see the Christmas tree. I mean, fun things that don't necessarily mean that you're going to get into trouble. But you all get in the car, and somebody's packing a gun and you don't know it. That's a serious problem for the people in the car, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Major problem, because the officer to pull you guys over is not going to determine whose gun it is right then and there. At that point, you'll probably be taking everybody, putting them under arrest, and investigating the situation later.
I want you to repeat that again, because what you said is very important. I'm going to break it down, because we get a lot of calls, and I know you've had hundreds of people call you in 25 years saying, when can my son or daughter get out of jail? And you've got a certain amount of time to investigate that, don't you?
Yes.
How long do you have to investigate it?
48 hours.
So,
Typically up to 72 state law.
okay. So here's the deal. It's Christmas Eve. I'm going out with my buds, and we're going to go downtown to a sports bar. We have a few drinks. We're on the way back. Somebody's got a gun.
Unfortunately, you'll be spending Christmas locked up.
That's not very funny, but it's a very serious problem. And why are you going to be locked up?
Because, like I said, as the officer pull up on that vehicle, you have a gun, all subjects in that vehicle is going to be arrested. Simple as that, especially under the influence. If the gun is not legal, like you said, if you just have a permit, it's a lot of different factors that play into part there.
So for 48 to 72 hours, that's Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, Boxer Day, when people return gifts on the 26th. You're not going to have any festive time with your family.
Not at all, because of a mistake.
Right.
That could have been prevented.
And everybody is going to be held to the same test.
Yes.
So, a word to the wise, when you go out in the holidays, don't be afraid to ask the people you're traveling with if anybody has a weapon.
That's
'Cause you
the way
don't-
you err on the side of caution.
Yeah, don't travel with them. And if people are drinking and driving, and there's a designated driver, how do you know the designated driver hasn't been drinking?
That's true. By all means, make sure the designated driver hasn't been drinking, but most importantly, make sure the designated driver has driver's license.
Okay, that leads to another issue. There's a high percentage of people in the city who do not have insurance. And if you drive without insurance, can you get arrested?
Yes. You can be arrested and the vehicle can be towed, which will add to more expenses.
Okay, let's go over this very carefully. Why can you arrest me? Okay, we got a caller here. Good morning.
Good morning. Could you repeat that information about if you have a legal weapon in your car and there are other people in the car with you? I didn't quite get.
Okay, we're going to go over this again, and it's most important. I'm telling you, as God made little green apples in this earth, there isn't a year in my 51 years in practice that I have not had to deal with this issue. So we're going to repeat it for you. Thank you for calling in.
Okay.
Okay. I got a gun in the car. If I don't have a permit to carry the gun on my person, that gun has to be stored in the trunk of the car while it's being transported, correct?
And unloaded, yes.
And unloaded. Now, I've got a permit to carry the gun, and I'm driving in the car with other people. I'm legal, correct?
Permit Or CPL.
CPL,
Okay. Yes.
not just a permit.
Right.
Okay? Explain the difference between the permit and the CPL.
A permit just basically, as an adult with a clean record, 21 years of age, I believe, you can buy a handgun. However, to have a CPL, that means you can actually carry the pistol on you.
Okay, so if I'm carrying the pistol on me, can I carry the pistol on me loaded
With a permit or a CPL,
with a CPL?
yes, you can.
Can I carry it into a bar?
No, you cannot.
Okay, well, they're changing the law in some of these areas, leaving it up to the owner of the establishment, these school issues and all these other issues. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but you still, at this point, can't carry a gun that's loaded into a bar, correct?
That is true.
Okay. So I think we cleared the air on this, that carrying the gun with the permit, you put it in the trunk, but it can't be loaded.
Correct.
If it's loaded, you're in trouble.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm driving without insurance or proof of insurance. It's discretionary as to whether you can arrest me and detain me, correct?
Yes.
What factors do you look at to make a decision as to whether you're going to arrest an individual under those circumstances?
I guess you look at it's a whole lot of circumstances you will look at as far as using your discretion, how they're traveling, what type of vehicle, looking at their history. Sometimes they're driving, you have to run their names and see if they got any warrants and that sort of thing. So a lot of stuff plays in part, but it just becomes a situation where you shouldn't be driving without insurance. And I know insurance is expensive, but I know it just kind of costs to do the right thing.
So you're further ahead by riding with somebody who has insurance. And you should ask that question. That's an important question to ask when you get in a vehicle with somebody, if they have insurance.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, because it's real important. And speaking of insurance, it's another scam. Some of these places will give you one of these 7-day insurance certificates, which it's a scam as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And they do that for people to go out and get,
Tags.
oh, yeah, but it's still a scam.
Yeah, they do it just to get their tags, and they go on. And when that day expires, they just still driving around with no insurance.
And under the financial responsibility laws of the state of Michigan, if you get involved in an accident under those circumstances, you're going to lose your right to drive a car. Now I'm going to talk about some of the ugly warrant issues that arise during the holidays and nobody pays attention to. And you brought it up, and I want to thank you for bringing it up. You run people. So here I'm out, I'm having a good time, and I get stopped, and I don't have a certificate of insurance, and you're going to make a discretionary call as to whether you're going to arrest me, right?
Right.
But then you look on there and you see there's a lien out there because I haven't paid child support in 5 years, and there's a warrant for my arrest. You're obligated to hold me, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want to go over that again because I want you to know, and I say this, I want you to know as a practicing lawyer for 51 years, I get these calls every holiday. My friend Henry's sister called because her husband got picked up because he had an outstanding warrant for child support when he was involved in an automobile accident on Christmas Eve. And he's in jail and he's injured. That can happen, can it?
Yes, it can.
Okay. So if you have outstanding warrants, you ought to be checking right now to make sure that you got your house in order if you want to enjoy your holidays. If you have outstanding traffic citations, you ought to have those resolved or make arrangements to have them resolved. Otherwise, you're going to be waltzed around the county from community to community to community on hold. If you've got 2 or 3 moving violations and you've neglected them and you get picked up on New Year's Eve, where are you going?
We're going to be locked up.
Did you hear that? You're going to be locked up.
And you're going to be spending the New Year's in jail.
And you may not believe this, but you may be the most wonderful person, and I'm serious about this, and hold a good job, but you're just a little irresponsible about paying your tickets, and you're going to get locked up, and no one is going to forgive you, because what are you obligated to do when there's an arrest warrant out there and a lien on someone?
We are obligated to arrest you and place you into our custody.
Okay, it's not just discretionary, it's an obligation.
Yes.
And if there's a lien for child support or tickets, or there's an arrest warrant because you didn't show up in court on some other issue, it could even involve a misdemeanor of some kind,
That's right.
you're going to get locked up. And then you're going to have to face 2 charges.
Exactly.
One is for your failure to appear in court, you'll be in contempt, and the other one's a charge. So you're going to have a miserable holiday, it's going to cost you a lot of money on top of it.
Yes, it is.
Now, there's a shortage, and I want to talk about this for a few minutes, in the Wayne County Sheriff's Department of deputies, correct?
Yes, sir. We're probably short about anywhere from 100 to 120 officers right now.
And you're looking for officers, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Why would I want to become a deputy sheriff after I talked about how miserable a job it is?
We didn't talk about that.
Well,
It's a
tell us-
great job.
Okay, you've been a deputy for 25 years.
That's right.
Okay, but I mean, I talk about all these problems getting out here. You understand what I just said?
Yeah.
Getting out in the street and having to deal with people and their problems. You've enjoyed it for 25 years, haven't
I've
you?
enjoyed it. I've had a wonderful career. I have no qualms, no regrets. I'm very happy with where I'm at, and I'm happy with the decision I made 25 years ago.
Okay, how do I qualify? What do I have to do?
Well, qualifications, I have a few brochures, but basically having a good criminal history, good driver's record. You got to be at least 18 years of age. And we have various different departments you can move around to, so definitely it's a great career.
Do I need to have an associate's degree in order to qualify for the sheriff's department?
Actually, don't. All you need is a high school diploma to qualify. However, the sheriff does urge people to further their education.
Are there incentives to further my education while I'm in the sheriff's department?
I believe we do. They had like tuition reimbursement for a few. I'm not exactly sure on the actual numbers as how much it is they pay tuition education, but I got some information I'll leave with you. And Director Charles Pappas, he's the director of recruiting, and I got a few brochures I'll be more than happy to leave here with you.
Okay, so if anybody's interested, they can call my office and I'll have literature and I'll send it out to you. I can be reached at 248-335-9266. Now, you said 18.
18 years of age.
Can I own a gun at 18 in the state of Michigan?
You know, I would have to double check on that. Not 100% sure.
But if I'm deputized, I'm going to have a gun, right?
Well, yes, but you'll be working inside the jails, first of all, once you start off. So a lot of people do their first few years inside the jails anyway.
Okay. So is that the normal order of things?
Yes, you definitely start off there because, you know, and I think it's a good experience as well because you're learning how to talk and deal with people when they're at their worst, in a sense.
Speaking of the jails, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's a lot of discussion about moving the jail.
Well, yeah, you definitely put me on the spot.
Well, then I won't touch it. Okay. So, in terms of hiring, what about the physical requirements of the job? Do I have to go through certain physical requirements to?
We have 2 or 3 different exams you would have to take, and like I said, a lot of stuff is in the literature, in the process, but it used to be the MCOS testing. A lot of stuff is online as well. They have a lot of practice exams that will get you prepared for it as well.
And is it open enrollment now to get a job?
Oh, definitely. We are hiring right now. In fact, I have... We're actually accepting applications up until June 1st of 2018.
Okay, so it's open enrollment. What's the starting salary if I qualify?
The starting salary is $34,648 a year.
And it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you're with the department for 25 years, you can work yourself into a nice position with overtime, can't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're open 24 hours, 7 days a week, so it's almost like built-in overtime. We're extremely short, so we have officers that are working a ton of hours.
So this is a gift to you in Wayne County. Do I have to be a resident of Wayne County to apply for this job?
No, you don't.
I have to be drug-free.
Definitely drug-free and a good driver's record.
Okay. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a
for
happy
having me.
holiday.
You do the same, sir.
Okay, and thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.